The opinions expressed are those of the host. The material is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and it is not intended as an endorsement for any specific investment. Visit crestmontpw.com for more details.
Welcome to the Ascent. This is Sam McGee with Crestmont Private Wealth. I'm the CEO and owner of Crestmont, which has offices in Houston, Texas at 1 Riverway and Boerne, Texas at 604 South Main Street. We have the little white house with the American flag out front, and I have one of my good friends and special guests today, Patrick Cahoon. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Stan. How are you?
Good. So Patrick is a lawyer. He's also a Renaissance man. He's a volunteer firefighter, president of the Boerne Volunteer Fire Department as well, and just does all sorts of stuff. You were on the P&Z here in Boerne, right?
I was. I served on Planning and Zoning Commission for 10 years here.
Wow, yeah. So anything that I want to know about Boerne, I typically call Patrick, and I usually can get a pretty quick answer. But today we're going to be talking about really the legal side of things for business owners and high net worth families, because we live in a world where litigation is pretty prevalent. There's transactions happening all the time. There's online stuff that happens. There's reputational risk. And probably one of the biggest concerns that our client base has, beyond their money not outliving them is a big concern, is what if I get sued? And I get that question from people that literally stay at home and do nothing to get sued. And then I get that question from people that are in businesses that are highly susceptible to being sued. So Patrick, in your experience, what do you see with business owners and litigation these days?
That's a really broad question. And it's like anything else in life, right? There are people who are prepared and those who are not prepared. And what I encourage always is preparation, right? And that's not to go too deeply into what we do, but I think that every small, medium, large business owner should have legal counsel that they know and rely on, right? And coming out of the gate, whether you're a startup or whether you've been doing this for a long time and you just realize, hey, we're getting to a point in time where we need to be cognizant of risk mitigation and how to operate our business in an appropriate manner in today's environment. And so what we typically do is come in, regardless of where you're at on that path, and say, how are you taking care of your business? How are you operating? How are you managing the assets that you own? How are you taking the maximum advantage of the tax benefits that are out there? There still are a few. And so we work with CPAs and other tax advisors to put structures in place that help prepare someone for the worst possible scenario and help them operate in an optimal fashion.
That's great. And so in terms of like specifically lawsuits that you've seen, either on the plaintiff side or the defense side, which one do you do? Do you do both?
See, in the business context, you typically do both, because if you're a business owner and someone's not paying their bills, unfortunately, sometimes you're in the
got to go after them. Yeah,
you're collecting funds at some point in time, and sometimes people are collecting from you, or let's say you're unhappy with a good or service you purchased, your business has bought, and sometimes you have to stand your ground on that. We're not always in a position to work those out. We'd like to, but sometimes you can't, and the courts or arbitration are the results.
Interesting. So when you talk about having a relationship with business owners specifically, what does that kind of ideal business relationship look like from a legal advisor to business owner, despite industry? It doesn't matter which industry. What does that look like, and how does it start, and what's the ideal relationship to protect your clients?
Yeah, so what we really like to do is get in and understand someone's business, right? Because most people that we work with are passionate about what they do, and they're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. And what they need are solid professionals. They need a solid insurance professional. They need a solid CPA or accounting professional. They need a solid legal professional. Sometimes they need other types of professionals as well, but you at least need those three in almost any business. Sure. And those three individuals or groups of individuals should be able to understand what your business is, what your business concerns are, what your risks are, and help you determine not only how you're going to get into this business, but how you're going to get out of it at the end of the day, because nothing lasts forever. Mm-hmm. And so what we try to do is put together a plan, working with those 3 or 4 different service providers and say, look, here are the risks in your business. Here are the rewards. Here's how you want to benefit from that. Here's how to protect yourself from a legal standpoint, from a tax standpoint, from an insurance standpoint. These are all components that work together. And if you've got a good team with you, then you're minimizing your risk. You're mitigating your risk. You're hopefully taking the maximum advantage of the law and the tax system. And you're putting yourself out there in a position where you can go do what you do well, and you can let those people that do those other things do those for you. And hopefully with the background of understanding what your business is and what you're trying to accomplish. That's where we work. And I think most business attorneys, that's their approach. They want to come in and be a trusted partner, someone that you don't mind picking up the phone for. I know that there are plenty of folks out there that want to be able to pick up the phone and call their attorney or their CPA and not be nickeled and dimed together. And so we try to be very cognizant of that because we're in a long-term relationship with partners. I think that's what you're looking for, is long-term relationship partners that want to make sure that you succeed, because we succeed when our clients succeed. I want our clients to be in business for as long as they want to be in business. And then when it's time to pass that business on to the kids, or they're putting it together to market and sell it, sometimes that's on a 2 or 3 or 5 year basis. Sometimes they want to do it for 20 or 30 years and then they want to sell it. But there's always an exit path as well. So we're trying to help put that program together and make sure that as we go along, we stumble as little as possible.
Yeah.
And take advantage of the opportunities that we can.
No, it's good. I think you illustrated a really good point. I came into this with a frame of reference of lawsuits and litigation and what do you do and how do you prepare. But really what you're describing here is the relationship that a legal professional, a law firm, you would have with a business owner through the full life cycle, because you're going to run into so many transactional things. Could be estate related, it could be tax related, it could be litigation.
Sure.
But I think a lot of times people think lawyer, they think that.
And we do a lot of litigation, unfortunately. But the important thing for me to make sure I do is explain to our clients what litigation is and what it isn't, what you can reasonably expect. We have a complex system. It is very time consuming. It is very expensive. And we're, for the most part, trying to mitigate risk for our clients. And what that boils down to in the litigation concept is if we can't get you out of that litigation or can't get you through the litigation without making you more money than you would otherwise make or spending less money than you would otherwise spend, then we've got a problem. And because litigation is a tool.
Yeah, I love that. It's basically the concept of throwing good money at bad. Just don't do it.
Don't do it. And that's why we try to counsel our clients. Sometimes you might take a result you don't really like and you may end up paying money now, but that might be a much better result if you understand all of the factors. You appreciate the time that's involved in litigation. You may say, look, we can pay a little money now and get on with doing what we do and do it well.
Keep moving on.
Exactly, and make it up later. And we find that a lot. When the economy is very good, a lot of times people will bypass those transactions that don't go well. Somebody doesn't pay their bill or they weren't satisfied with a service or a good. And they'll say, you know what, we're making lots of money. We're going to do more business with this particular business partner. And you know what, we'll go on down the road and it'll all come out in the wash. And that's easier to do when times are good. A few years ago when the real estate market was crazy, a lot of people said, deals that had legal repercussions. People said, you know what, I'm not worried about that because there's another buyer or seller right around the corner. And now I would say that's not quite as prevalent as it was.
No, that's good. And you've always given me from a one friend to another approach, just the common sense approach, which we've had lots of conversations about this topic in the past, never on a podcast, but just even this morning, I pulled up to our office and I was planning on doing an estimate for tree removal. And in the city of Boerne, you have to have a permit for that, right? And we have legacy trees on our property, so forth. So I was supposed to meet with this company, not to be named, and go over an estimate. I drove by this morning. They were doing the work. Yeah, not good. I used the Patrick Cahoon common sense approach. They had only knocked down ligustrums, which were trash trees anyway, and they did knock out a pecan, which I'm not real happy about. But I kept a cool head, and I said, hey, how about if you stick a maple there? So I have a maple going in there. I didn't even have to call you, which is amazing. But that's because you've given me counsel in the past, like, hey, just stay grounded, make lemonade out of lemons sometimes, and avoid calling me and getting billed. And so I did today. That was a win. So let's go back a little bit and talk about one other concept. So you spent a lot of time on a lot of different transactions, a lot of different things. And I wanted to illustrate for our business owners the emotional importance of staying grounded through a really tense transaction. And maybe if you could, without obviously revealing any kind of identity or breaking privilege, what are some of the things that you've seen that have blown up maybe an important transaction like an M&A deal or something like that? I've heard of escrow fees blowing those things up. What have you seen that's been interesting?
You could really run the gamut because people have their personal picadillos. You can never tell exactly what's going to set someone off, and that is really important to them. And again, we come back to preparation is really important.
Yep.
When we talk about entering into a transaction, we're going to go out and look for a business we want to buy, one we want to sell. We want to sit down and say, okay, what's important to me? What do I see this? Is this something where we're looking for a specific type of buyer? We want a good Christian person to take this over because that's our base. Those are our people, right? Or are we looking for the max dollar? Do we need venture capital money? Do we think that this is the kind of thing that's open to that? Are we going to franchise a business? We've got so many options out there, but the key is a good counselor is going to sit down and say, let me tell you what the process looks like. And this is the same with litigation.
Yeah.
And you go through, here are the steps. Here's what due diligence looks like. That's a time-consuming process. It's like getting an IRS audit. It is uncomfortable. So prepare yourself for the pain. But if you see it coming and you understand, then it's a lot easier to take. And if you think you're going to flip this business and get it done in 30 days or 60 days, that's just unrealistic. And the same thing with litigation. It doesn't happen fast. So I think somebody that's been there, that will help you get a perception and an understanding of what's coming together and what you can reasonably expect will help dial down some of those problems. And then leave it on their doorstep. That's what you're hiring these people for.
Yep.
You're supposed to be able to sleep at night because you've got people that are handling it for you. Now, that's easier said than done. But if you have good communications with your people, whether they're CPAs, attorneys, whatever, and you can build that level of trust, then that's what we're certainly seeking for, and that's what you should be looking for as a business owner.
We're sitting down with Patrick Cahoon of Boerne, Texas. He's with Leger, Ketchum & Cahoon Law Firm that has offices in Boerne and the Woodlands. And Patrick, just in closing, would you share maybe just a little bit about what brought you to Boerne and maybe a shout out to your son over at the academy?
Yeah, happy to do that. As I like to tell people, it was a total God thing. My wife, Kirsten, and I, we had a strong desire to be here. We have family here. Kirsten's family is from here. They helped settle the place 150 years ago or so. And so this is where we wanted to raise our children. And we were blessed to do literally through a series of events that you couldn't put together if you wanted to. It was strictly something that God had to put his hands on.
That's awesome.
We were blessed to be able to do that. And in moving here, we were able to get engaged in the community at an early stage with Kirsten's job, working for the city. And I was able to get involved myself and get to know people and just start working and showing them what we're about. And we've had the privilege of staying and really growing with the community.
Very cool. And Patrick, if someone wanted to reach out to you and maybe continue this conversation, how would they find you?
Sure. We're here on Main Street in Boerne, Texas, 179 South Main on the second floor. Easy to find. Just come up the back stairs or the elevator, and we're right there. Or you can reach out to my assistant, Jason Curd. He's at jcurd@lkclawfirm.com, and his phone number is 210-504-4400.
I know your daughter's graduating soon and was part of the very competitive soccer team here at Boerne High and off to college, and maybe a shout out to your son on the East Coast.
Yeah, Boerne, we love you, buddy, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for joining us on the Ascent, and if you found this show to be helpful today, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to me at info@crestmontpw.com. I hope you have a great weekend, and God bless.